In this video, we're going to be covering a tutorial on how to draw a part inside of BobCAD-CAM using the Create 2D, Create 3D, and Utilities menus. Now to get started, we're going to go up to Create 2D and then Arc. And all we're going to do here is change the radius to 3 inches. And then you could either hit Tab on your keyboard or just click in another box, and that's going to update the view for us. And we're going to center it right there on XYZ 0. From here we can hit OK, and there's our first arc on the screen right there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the size of this to 0.1875, 3/16. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my X and set it to -2.5. And then just click in another box or again hit Tab, and then I'm going to hit OK. And then I'll go ahead and make another one that goes to X 2.5. And now we have 2 holes on both sides. So we'll go ahead and hit OK there. And then we're going to go ahead and make another hole. This time we're going to center it back at 0. So we're going to put it at X0, Y0, Z0. And then we're going to set the radius to 0.375 for the center hole there. And then we can go ahead and hit OK. So now we just have the 3 holes inside the one big arc. And now we're going to go over to our layers. Now on the layers, I have mine over here. I'm just going to click there. I'm going to right click on the CAD layer. And then I'm going to say rename. I'm going to go ahead and name this layer Bottom Wireframe. And then I can just click off of it, and there we have our new bottom wireframe layer. And then while we're still in here, we're going to go ahead and click this little button here to create another new layer. And we're going to go ahead and name this one Main Solid. And we just want to make sure that our check mark goes to that layer, and it should, because it's a new layer, it always moves the check mark to the newest layer. But if it doesn't, make sure the check mark moves down here to the main solid. And then after we have that new solid made, we're going to go up to the Create 3D menu, and we're going to click on Extrude Curve. Now when we click on Extrude Curve, the easiest way to work with this is to turn the view so we could see a side view or an isometric view of the part. So I'm just going to go right up here to my views. This is a top view, this little button here. So I want to go to the arrow next to it, move down, and then over to the ISO view. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We want to go to number 2 right here. And that's going to line us up with a view like this. The reason we do this is now when I go and drag a box over my geometry like so, we'll get a preview right away. And so far the preview is showing us this part going up 1 inch. But this part's actually going to go down 2 inches. So I'm just going to put a 0 in for the positive direction distance. And then I'm going to enter 2 for my other direction distance right there. So after we have it set up to go down 2 inches, we go ahead and hit OK. And then we can cancel out of the Extrude Curve feature. Now we're going to go up to the Cone command under the Create 3D. And we're going to create a cone that goes on top of this part. So we're going to set the top radius at 1 inch. We're going to set the base radius to 1.75, and then we're going to set the height to 1.5. So just like this right here, there's our cone. And then when we're done, we can go ahead and hit OK and then cancel out. Now, after we create that cone, what you'll see is when we grab our select tool and we touch the model, it shows up as 2 separate pieces. And I want this to show up as one single piece. So I'm going to go right up here to Boolean under Create 3D. We're going to make sure we're on the Add function, and then we're going to click the 2 solid models. Now to show a preview, you have to click the button that says Show Preview. For an add, you really won't notice too much, but you will see the hole in the part. A better way to see if an add is working is when you hit OK, you can then cancel out, grab your Select tool, and then touch the model. And this is going to light up the entire model if it's all one. So the next step is we're going to go throw a fillet on the bottom edge here and the top edge right here. We'll do a 1/4 inch fillet down here and a 3/8 fillet up top. So I'm just going to go up here to solid fillet, and you'll see that the radius shows up as 0.25. And whenever I fillet, I make sure to turn on the show preview option, because if a fillet is going to fail, it will not show you a preview. So if the preview shows up, it means it's going to be a good fillet. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this fillet here. And then I'm going to go ahead and change my radius to 0.375, because you can do all your filleting at once. The only difficult part becomes if you've clicked the show preview, it's trying to show me the preview before letting me really see the part. So I'm going to say hide the preview. That way I can pick this edge for my 3/8, and you'll see the two different sizes right there in the selected geometry. Now I can say show preview, and those are the two fillets that I'm trying to add onto the part. So if the preview comes out looking right, we go ahead and hit OK, and then cancel out. Now the next step is we need to get this hole to go all the way through the part. So we've already gotten it going through the base, and that was just because of the extrusion. So now we're going to go up to Extrude Cut. We're going to go into our CAD window here, so the drawing window where we did all this work, and we're going to click one time with a left click. That way it activates this window so that when we try and use shortcuts, it'll automatically use the shortcut. So I can use the letter S to hide the shading or the surfaces on my part. So we can just turn these on and off. Now what I want to do is I just want to go in and I want to pick this center hole right here and just click it. And just make sure it goes all the way through the part. Now it can go down as far as it wants, and it can actually go up as far as it wants, as long as there's no other solids that we have to worry about it hitting, which there's not. So for me, I'm just going to click this arrow right here, and you just click on it, but you don't hold your click down. You just click one time, you move your cursor up, and then you can click again. And I could do the same thing for the bottom, just bring it all the way through the part. And it doesn't matter that I'm going way further than I need to. Again, as long as there's no other solid model that this is going to run into, it's not going to be a big deal. So now I can just hit OK, and then click back in this window and hit the letter S. And that's going to turn my shading back on, and there is the hole right through the center of the part. Now after we have that hole through, we can cancel out of the Extrude Cut. We're going to go up to our top view right here. And then we're going to go make a new layer. So right over here, we're going to say add new layer by clicking this button, or you can right click in the layers and say add new layer. And I'm just going to call this layer slots. And then from here, I'm going to turn off the wireframe layer, the bottom wireframe, and the main solid layer, so that all we're going to be drawing is going to be the slots right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go make 3 arcs that'll help us build kind of a channel for the slot. So I'm going to go up to Create 2D and then Arc. And so for my first X, I'm just going to go with a size of 2.4375 with a radius of 0.375. And that's going to set it down right there for us. Then we can hit OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zero out the X, and we're going to enter that same value into the Y. So 2.4375. with the same exact size radius, and then we'll go ahead and hit OK. And then for the last one, we're just going to go to a minus 2.4375 on the Y. We'll see our preview update. Then we can go ahead and hit OK, and then cancel out. So the next step is we don't want to make a slot that goes around this whole thing. It's actually going to go from about here around to here. So I'm going to start by going up to Utilities, and then go to Rotate, and I'm just going to rotate this piece right here 35 degrees, right around XYZ 0. So I don't have to mess with the rotation center point. All I have to do is click on the arc, and then enter in for Z 35 degrees. And that's just going to rotate that 35. Now I don't want to keep my original, so I'm not going to turn on copies. I'm just going to hit OK. Now I want to make a copy of this one here, and I want it to go around the part 110 degrees from where it's sitting to over there. Now this time I'm going to make sure to turn on a copy because I don't want to lose the original. So I turn on the copies, just one, because I already have one. I just want one extra copy. And I'll go ahead and hit OK, and then I can cancel out. The next step would be I need 2 more of these, and I could have just kept rotating them around, but in this case I just want to go and mirror them. I have a perfect split line right here from the x-axis, so I'm just going to go to Mirror. I'm going to make sure to turn on Copy first just so I don't forget, and then the easiest way to use the mirror is just go and pick the geometry that you'd like to mirror. So I'm going to pick those 2 pieces of geometry, and then I could tell it what plane I want to use to mirror. So currently a YZ plane, that's this plane here, is not the right one. So we want to go down here across the XZ plane, and that way it copies them straight down. Then we hit OK, and now we can go ahead and cancel out. So now what we need to do is we need to go connect the top and the bottom, and after we get that, we can actually mirror it to do the other side as well. So I'm going to go over to the Create 2D tab. I'm going to go to the Arc command, And I'm going to go ahead and click on this button right here, the arc 3 points endpoint radius. So what we're defining here is we're defining the endpoints first. So if I hover over this arc right here, you'll see that we get 2 points here, 2 points down here, and you get that on these two and that one there. So what I want to do is I just want to hover over this edge, and I want to pick this top arc here, and then I want to go straight across to this arc until the snap points pop up. And then I want to pick the top one again. Now that gets me the two top, and now I'm in control of this kind of bend that I'm adding on. So I'm just going to go up to the top one, hover over this arc, and wait for the snap point to pop up. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick the top one right there. Then I'm going to go to this, hover over the edge again, and I'm going to pick the top point of these 2 points from there, straight across to the top point of that one, and then up to the bottom of this bottom circle. So I'll pick that, and then we can right-click and cancel out. Instead of doing the other side as well, I could make my life easier by just going up to Utilities, and then Mirror, and then again using that XZ plane and a copy, I can pick these 2 pieces of geometry. They're just going to mirror straight across. I'll hit OK, and I'll cancel out. So now I could go to Quick Trim under Utilities, and just trim out the geometry just by clicking on what I no longer want. So I'll click right there, right over here, and then I'm just going to trim out all these entities all the way around. So just click on each one, get that guy down there, that one there. Be careful with the 3 o'clock position on a lot of these arcs. It won't trim past that because that's technically the end of the part. So you might have to do 2 trims anytime you're working on kind of that 3 o'clock side of the arc. And then the next step is we're going to go cut these into the rest of the solid that we already created. We're going to go 3/4 of an inch deep, so I'll cancel out a quick trim. I'm going to go up to my views real quick, and I'm going to turn it to the ISO 2 view. And then the way I like to pick the geometry is I'm going to go to the Create 3D tab, and then Extrude Cut. The distance up doesn't matter, but the distance in the other direction box needs to be set to our exact depth. So I'm going to go 0.75 there. And then I'll just hold shift and pick both of these pieces of geometry. And then I could go turn on my main solid. Now with that, you could always tell you have a good piece of geometry if it caps off the tops, which this all looks great. It's going down into the part 3/4 of an inch. And then the height above is irrelevant. It's just what I had it set to before. And then I could go ahead and hit OK. And then we can cancel out, and there is our 2 slots now added into the solid model. And then after we have that drawn, what we're now going to do is move the check mark up to main solid and turn off the slots layer. And the reason we're doing that is it just gets very difficult to grab the corner edge to put a chamfer on it if there's 2D geometry in the way. So now we can go up to the solid chamfer option. We're going to set the chamfer size to 0.031 just to break the corner. And then we're going to go in and pick all the edges for this part. So we're just going to rotate and just line it up and click an edge. And you should see it pop up in here when you get it. So I'm just going to click my way around. Right there. Right there. Be careful, there's a couple little tiny entities for how we kind of joined this part up. We're also going to pick the holes, the 2 side holes, the top hole here, this side hole. And let me go ahead and repick all of this as well. So I'm just going to go around. Got the little entities that we got to make sure to grab onto just because of where we joined our geometry when we made it earlier. And then to make sure all of this is going to chamfer properly, we're going to say Show Preview. And then that way we could see our chamfers on all the holes before we confirm it, and before it even fails, we could find out if it's going to fail now. So now I can hit OK and then cancel out. Now the next step is I want to add 3 round grooves to the side of this part. And so the easiest way to do this is to actually go up to Create 3D, and then we're going to go to the Torus command. Now we're going to make 3 toruses, all the same size but situated at a different location in Z. So the major radius is going to be 3. The minor radius is going to be 0.15. And then we have our origin. The first origin for Z is going to go minus 0.875, straight down there, and then we can hit OK. The next one is going to go to minus 1.25. We can click in another box to update our preview and then hit OK. And then the final torus we're going to create is going to be at a minus 1.625. Then we just have to click in the Y. or any box just to tab out of it, and then we can go ahead and hit OK. And now we have these 3 toruses on the part. So now we can cancel out of the feature. We're going to go up to the Boolean option. We're just going to click on it. Now for this one, we want to pick it in a specific order because we're not adding this together. We're subtracting these 3 pieces out. So I'm going to go right here and click on subtract. And the way this one's set up is you're going to pick your main surface or your main solid, and then you pick what you want to remove. So I want to go ahead and keep my main solid here, and then I want to choose, and it already switches boxes for me. I just want to pick the 3 toruses, 1, 2, and 3. Now to make sure everything's going to subtract properly, we're then going to turn on the show preview option, which is going to show us those 3 grooves. If we like the way it looks, we can go ahead and hit OK, and then cancel out. So now that we have all these grooves in, the last step I want to do is first put this back in an isometric view, and then I want to cut a hole in the bottom of the part. Not really a hole, but a big pocket at the bottom of the part. So if I rotate this, I want a big pocket right in here. So I'm going to go up to Create 2D, and I'm just going to go to an arc, and I'm going to set the center at X and Y 0. So in this one, I want to set the Z to -1 inch. And then I'm going to set the radius to 2.8. Now you can't see what's happening right now, but if you click out of this box and you just click in here for a second, you can then hit the letter S. So when I hit the letter S, it hides the shading. But now since I clicked in the window, I have a preview. But you'll notice it's a darker color blue than anything else on the drawing. And the reason that is because it's an editable feature right now. So I could go over here and say X, go to 0. Y, go to 0. And then for my Z, I'm just going to put -1. And that's going to drop it down in position for me. Radius is still at 2.8. And then I can go ahead and hit OK and then cancel out. And we could see that arc now added to the bottom of the part right there. So it's going to go down and through the part. So if we flip it back this way, that's what it's going to look like. Now all I have to do is get that to cut all the way through out the bottom of the part. So I'm going to go up to Create 3D and then Extrude Cut. I'll go ahead and pick that arc right there. You just got to be careful. Make sure you're picking that arc. And if you're having a hard time because the solid's in the way or anything like that, you can go up to the Home tab and you could turn off this little button right here. It's your solid mask. Now you'll always have it here, but if you have this toolbar, it'll either be on the left side, the bottom, or the right. You also have this button right here, so I could turn that off. Now we can't pick anything but the 2D geometry, so I could pick that piece there. I'm going to set the distance up to 0 because I don't want to go up any. And then I'm just going to click this bottom arrow and drag it all the way through the part. That way when I hit OK, I can cancel out, click in here and hit the letter S, and then I can rotate my view. And all I'm doing to rotate is clicking my middle mouse wheel and holding it down like a button. And then there is our bottom pocket right in there. So we can cut that big old pocket in there. And that's it. The whole part's drawn. Now to set it up so that when we save it, we get a good preview for the next time we want to open up, make sure to do a save as and save it as a file type. But before you do it, set it to a good view. So I'm just going to go up to my views and I'm going to set it to an isometric view because when we save the file, we kind of take a screenshot of it in the position that it was in the last time it was open. That way, when you're reopening these files, you get a preview of the part. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a save as here. And I'm just going to go ahead and enter in finished. And then just say save. And I already have one, so I'm going to override it yes. And now my part's going to be saved right there. And that concludes the video on the CAD tutorial inside of version 32.